Greetings, my noble knights, it is I, Blaze Templar, and tonight I'd like to talk about an issue that I've thought about for a while. I've been thinking long and hard about Nintendo Switch, and more importantly, its online functionality. Now, the Switch was never going to win any awards for being the fastest out there for downloads or whatever, for streaming, etc. And I understood that, but it actually was a pretty decent little device. Unfortunately, the servers that the Switch is reliant on are complete fiery trash. Of course. As just demonstrated. And I had to think about this for a while. And it was really Smash Ultimate that gave me a good look at what the Switch's online capabilities were. Other games I had played, like Stardew Valley Online, and even the, what do you call it, the ranking mode of the X Legacy Collection with the challenge mode, Pokken Tournament, things like this all have at least some online functionality, and I've been thinking about this. We're paying $20 per year for this service. Okay, so what do we get? A couple of NES titles every month, which is pretty much pointless. For the price I'm paying, I would rather just be buying the Switch title or the NES titles individually. There are no SNES, no 3DS, no DS, no nothing else, just NES again. So that's stupid. What else are we getting? Online services. So that's the bulk of Nintendo Switch Online, is the online services. That's what its meat is. The other stuff is just like icing on the cake kind of stuff. So how well does online work? Well, Smash Brothers has given me the best example of how Switch Online works. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee has the advantage of having sync time between turns, because they have to play out animations, decisions, etc. And that usually gives them quite a bit of time to make sure everything is synced up. And then they usually have a small window between turns where everything syncs up again and all that stuff. So they have that advantage of long syncing windows. Believe me, Game Freak definitely takes advantage of that. But an online game like Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is in real time, or supposedly, should have very good connections. Should be like your peer-to-peer, except it's not really. Incredibly laggy, incredibly frustrating. I mean, shoot. Some of the best players in the world have had lag times when playing their next-door neighbor, who are also competitive smashers, so you know they have to have that high-end internet, and they suffer from horrific lag. That is not peer-to-peer. That is obviously not peer-to-peer. What it is, I don't know. I really don't. Obviously, the network system does not work terribly well. And here's another thing that I really want to point out. So Nintendo decided we're going to charge this generation for online, which automatically means you have a much greater responsibility to ensure that your services work properly. Otherwise, you're going to make your consumers very upset. And so, I need you to think about this. They know how many Nintendo Switches are out in the wild, approximately. I don't know that exact number off the top of my head, but they would at their home offices. They'd be able to keep a running count of just about the sales of the Switch and Smash Bros. Ultimate in particular in this case. You know that this game is one of your biggest, hottest selling games on the Switch, and you're releasing a worldwide patch. You're well aware of these details. Before you do them, you know this, which means you can easily prepare beforehand to have additional servers to handle the strain of your customers coming on, downloading this thing, and using the new content. And you'll notice that it'll trickle off after about a month, so you can release these extra servers that you rented or turn them off if you decided to actually buy new servers and just have them in reserve for new games, etc. You could have done this. You could have been prepared for this issue well beforehand. And yet, this is the quality of what you're going to give us? When it was free, it's understandable. You're not going to be able to invest as much if it's completely free. But here's the problem. Sony had it free last generation, and they did it better. They did it better than you are now. I mean, for context, I have a Nintendo DS and a PlayStation Portable as handheld consoles. My PSP, a console generation older than your 3DS, connected to the internet better than my 3DS does now. Despite the fact it doesn't run on some of the newer networks than the 3DS does, it connected to the internet and played more efficiently. And it still does when it connects to the internet. This thing, the PSP, has a better network system than your 3DS. And for context, better context, the PSP, which is now more or less a console generation and a half, 2 console generations older, because it came out during the PS3 era, PS2-ish, that kind of area. This old piece of hardware has better internet connections, or did in its prime. I don't know if it still does because I've upgraded the security to too high for the PSP to handle. But in its prime, had better online functionality than the Nintendo Switch. Let that sink in for a moment. The PSP, a handheld from the competitor that was free network internet, had better internet than the Nintendo Switch. A console that was released about 2 years ago now. How do you do that where someone's competition PSP, the PlayStation Portable handheld console from a generation and a half ago, still has better internet than your current system, Nintendo? Seriously, think about that. The PlayStation Portable. The PlayStation Portable. How do you... That blows my mind. And yes, I get it. This has gotten more players playing it all at once than any of the PSP titles. I get that. But I'm talking overall, consistently. The PSP still beat it. How do you mess that up? How do you mess that up? And I'm sure people who have played online on the PlayStation 2 would be able to confirm or deny if the PlayStation 2, with its jack-in back cables, had better internet or not. So I'm kind of curious. If you've played PS2 online, I never did because I played single-player games basically only on my PS2. But if you played like Call of Duty or whatever was on online functionality on the PS2, let me know. Did the PS2 have better network than Smash Brothers, than the Nintendo Switch overall? Let me know. I'm actually curious now, because if that's the case, we're talking over 2 console generations ago, and you're still worse than that. Just think about that. You're charging for a network system that's worse than older consoles. That some of them still run quite well, as long as you don't over-upgrade your network security. So anyway, that's just something that's mind-boggling to me. It really is. How do you fail on such a simple premise? So that's what I got for you tonight. Just some food for thought. And we've been giving Nintendo the Bethesda pass. Oh, it's fine. It's Nintendo. They can get away with a few things. No, if you're going to be charging me for the online, make sure it actually works. And right now it's obvious it doesn't. So, until next time, goodbye.